how do you know if you're in perimenopause? It's not just your age, and it's not just a few symptoms. In fact, there's more than 35 known symptoms that many women will experience in that period of time leading up to menopause. You're not going crazy, and every single woman is going to experience menopause at some point in their lives. But you really need to know that these symptoms are related to perimenopause because there's something you can do about it. In fact, new research shows that the earlier you begin to take preventative steps before menopause, the easier the transition is into menopause, and the better for your overall health and longevity. I'm postmenopausal. I'm so excited to be in this after party, and I want to invite you to be in this cool, it's like the hot flash girls are in this after party, and like if you can get here and do it in the right way, it doesn't have to be so horrible. It really doesn't. Hey, welcome to the Chalene Show. My name is Chalene Johnson, and thank you so much for subscribing to the podcast. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, I thought I would mention the audio version of this podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. But for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I can tell from the statistics, a lot of you are showing up and watching the content over and over, and you're leaving comments, and you're not subscribed. And I have to assume it's just because you forgot. Is that why? I hope that's the only reason why. Anyways, I would love to invite you right now to subscribe and let me know it was just this simple reminder. Like as you're watching this video, you could just comment below like, hey, thanks for the reminder. I wasn't subscribed. Thank you for taking a second to do that. This is such an important topic for any woman who is over age 35. I think a lot of us have been conditioned to fear menopause, and we've heard about perimenopause, but we also assume that that's like just a couple of years before menopause. But research shows that statistically speaking, it can last anywhere from 1 to 10 years before menopause. And many women have no idea that the things that they're experiencing are related to perimenopause. And the reason why you need to know that is because if you take steps to balance your hormones early, number one, it's just going to be so much better because the symptoms are not fun. It is like the roller coaster from hell. It's this very strange, erratic explosion of different symptoms that sometimes are there, sometimes are gone, and you're going to feel like you're going crazy, or you feel like it's all in your mind, or you feel like, well, these are all things that I could fix if I was just more disciplined, or these are things that are it's just normal because I'm getting older. And I'm here to tell you that if you pay attention to these symptoms, they will give you clear indications that your hormones are in flux, and then you can work with a provider who can help you to get them in balance, or you can choose to go the all-natural route because there's so many ways to balance our hormones with diet, exercise, and proper nutrition, as well as supplementation. This is so important for all of you to know because there's so much you can do from a natural standpoint. So let's just start there. And I want to recommend, you're going to see in my show notes, right at the very top, I will put a link to the episode I did on how you can balance your hormones naturally, an alternative to hormone replacement therapy. Let me share with you my own experience. As I began entering perimenopause, I was completely unaware. In fact, I remember going to a doctor who specialized in hormone replacement therapy, and she began asking me questions if I had any symptoms of perimenopause. And I was like, no, none. And she's like, low energy? I'm like, nope. She's like, dry skin? I'm like, nope. She started going through all of the list of symptoms that are kind of common. Any hot flashes? Nope. And I really didn't feel like I was having any symptoms. But then she tested my hormone levels, and they were completely out of whack. In fact, I had like almost zero progesterone. And when we started doing low dosages of hormone replacement therapy, again, I'm going to talk to you about natural alternatives as well, but just by doing some really low dosages, this is while I was in perimenopause, age 45, of those hormones, it wasn't until I got on them that I realized how good I felt, which meant that it hadn't even dawned on me that I didn't feel good. Sometimes we don't know how bad we feel until we feel good again. And that's what it was for me. Like I didn't realize that my energy was really low. I didn't realize that I was holding on to more fat in my abdominal region. I didn't realize that my skin was really dry. Like all of these things, they happen so gradually for many of us that we kind of in our minds dismiss them because we're also thinking, well, I'm aging. And so of course, I don't feel or look like I did in my 20s, but I'm here to tell you, we're just a walking hormone. Now think about what your hormones can do. It's because of a whole host of hormones that we have the ability to grow another human in our bodies. That just blows my mind. Because of hormones, we can form like little teeth and hair and hands and feet. So to think that when your hormones are out of whack, that we sometimes go, well, maybe it's just me. They're so powerful and they're so important. They are responsible for absolutely every single thing that we do. Our cognition, our digestion, the way we move, the way we think, the way we act, the way we hold body fat, our energy, our sleep, everything is related to your hormones. And you want to be your best. You want to feel your best. You want to look your best. You want to live your best life. So this is of critical importance to anyone who really cares about being your best. To be your best, you have to make sure that all those chemicals are firing. You have to make sure that all the synapses are connecting. And that isn't possible. It doesn't work in an optimal way when our hormones are completely out of whack. And frankly, with the research and the studies that we have today, it's almost criminal how little our medical profession knows about women's health and hormones. That's why I want to recommend to you very early on, because I know many of you are going to say, well, where can I go to get tested? How do I find out if, in fact, I am perimenopausal? Well, to date, there is no specific test to know if you're perimenopausal. And in fact, even a doctor who's certified in menopausal care is not very likely to want to test to see if you're in perimenopause. However, what they can do is test your hormone levels to figure out what's high, what's low, and how those can be balanced for you before you hit menopause. And I highly recommend that you do look for a doctor who's certified with the North American Menopause Society. I'll link to that in our show description as well. And at a minimum, I want you to empower yourself and take a look at their recent position on women's hormones and a collection of the studies and most recent research that impacts our health, because the average medical doctor has less than 8 hours of training on women and menopause. That's one day. You have probably, as just watching this video, I would dare say you've probably watched more than, 8 videos on the subject. I don't know. But it's shocking to me how little medical doctors, not all, but many medical doctors know about menopause. And listen, they can't all specialize in everything. So my recommendation is, this is such an important area that you seek out a doctor who is, number one, up to date with the latest research. Number two, also a doctor who's willing to talk to you about hormone replacement options other than just pellets. And lastly, you might even want to ask them, of all of their patients who are either perimenopausal or menopausal, what percentage of them are they treating with hormone replacement therapy? Because then you're going to get a true sense of their position. The fact of the matter is, if you are a woman over the age of 35 and you're experiencing some or many of these symptoms, you are likely perimenopausal. They include brain fog, irregular periods, low energy, anxiety, dry eyes, lack of motivation, depression, weight gain, itchy inner ear, frozen shoulder, sleep issues, migraines, low-level nausea, gum problems, joint pain, hot flashes, vertigo, mood swings, change in hair texture, heart palpitations, dry skin, low libido, burning mouth sensations, osteopenia, bladder issues, thinning hair, rogue hair growth, changes to skin texture and tone, change in body odor, tinnitus, vaginal dryness, high cholesterol, irregularity, visceral fat, and night sweats, just to name a few. Now, for so many of you, you probably have looked at some of those symptoms and thought, well, I had some of those things, maybe one or two of those things at different times, even when I was in my 20s. So is this a sign of perimenopause? The difference between some of these symptoms happening on random occasion and what you're experiencing during perimenopause is a collection of these symptoms. And they're often irregular. And here's why that's important to know. Because your hormones in perimenopause are in flux. When estrogen's high, you're going to have some symptoms, and then the next month estrogen's low, and so those symptoms go away, or progesterone's high, or then progesterone's low. And so the symptoms are also often in flux, which tends to make us dismissive of the symptoms. If you're suddenly gaining weight, most of us have been conditioned all of our lives to think, well, I've just not been very disciplined. If you start to notice that your skin is dry, you're like, well, you know what? I really haven't been that great about putting on lotion lately. My digestion is off. Maybe I haven't been eating. Like, your first intuition is to blame yourself. When you're feeling low on energy and you're just like, I'm just not into my job. I'm not really in the mood to have sex. And you're thinking that it's something about you, or it's something about your environment or your job or your husband, or it's something externally, when really what's probably going on is your hormones. You're not crazy. It's not all in your head. And it's not something you can fix with willpower. It's your hormones. In that period of time before we hit menopause, and like just as a refresher, let me remind you that menopause is literally one day. That was a shock to me too. I was like, wait, it's one day? Yeah. It's the day when you've gone 365 days with no cycle. That day is menopause. The day after it is postmenopause. All right, so I'm postmenopausal. I'm so excited to be in this after party, and I want to invite you to be in this cool, it's like the hot flash girls are in this after party, and like if you can get here and do it in the right way, it doesn't have to be so horrible. It really doesn't. I feel better than ever. I feel way better now than I did when I was in perimenopause because I didn't take it that seriously. Even though I did some moderate hormone replacement, I wasn't even consistent about taking it because I kind of thought it was in my head. I wasn't doing enough research. I wasn't looking at the literature. I wasn't listening to the experts. And frankly, I just didn't know enough about menopause and perimenopause to take it as seriously as I needed to in perimenopause. And I'm here to tell you that now, before you hit menopause, is when you want to take this as serious as possible. Okay. Or postmenopausal. Okay, so when you're in perimenopause, what's happening, right, is your body's producing fewer and fewer eggs. Your cycles become less predictive. Sometimes estrogen goes up, estradiol goes up, and sometimes it fluctuates down. And what happens when estradiol goes down, the body doesn't absorb calcium as well, which is why it's so important that you're supplementing with not just calcium, but with magnesium, that you're doing things to help regenerate bone strength. So you can avoid things like brittle bones, osteopenia, osteoporosis. This reduction in estradiol reduces the juiciness of your body. And that means like your skin is going to be drier. You're going to have more vaginal dryness. Your hair is going to be dry. Like everything gets drier when estradiol starts to dry up. It's also responsible for creating a dysregulation in your thermogenesis. So your temperature gauge, that's why you'll hear people who are perimenopausal sometimes having hot flashes, night sweats, or even cold flashes. But because it is a roller coaster ride and sometimes estradiol is high, that's going to cause you to have painful periods, irregular periods, painful PMS, breast tenderness, headaches, like all the things you probably were experiencing when you were going through puberty, including adult acne. But perhaps one of the most dramatic reductions of hormone production we have is that of the follicle stimulating hormone. Now, that's a hormone that stimulates egg growth. Well, in that your body's producing fewer and fewer eggs, that FSH hormone starts to reduce. And when that happens, it affects your pituitary gland, which affects your cognition, which now research shows affects the way your brain processes information. Like our brains are looking at information in a different way once we're perimenopausal, moving into menopause. This creates very real changes in our mood, depression, anxiety, and interest in sex. Fluctuations in progesterone can cause all kinds of things from low level nausea. Like think about it. If you ever had a baby, or maybe you remember someone who's experienced morning sickness or all day sickness, that's hormone fluctuation. So it shouldn't surprise anyone that you might experience low level nausea or digestive issues because progesterone is responsible for so many of those functions. So you can experience low energy, again, mood swings, problems with digestion, problems with urinary continence, where like you can just sneeze and you're like, what the heck? I just peed my pants. Like what is going on here? But you might notice it happens one month and then not the next month, or it happens one certain week of every month. Ladies, those are your hormones. In fact, a study by Liu and colleagues published in 2019 in the Journal of Sexual Medicine revealed that these hormonal shifts alter the way certain areas of the brain speak to other areas of the brain, particularly those associated with sexual interest and sexual function. It's not in your head. It's your hormones. The impact of decreasing estradiol in perimenopausal women has been shown to increase your risk of osteoporosis, osteopenia, changes in skin, reducing elasticity, which includes crepiness, red spots, splotches, and increased wrinkling because your estradiol is decreasing. It also has been proven to increase cardiovascular risks and change lipid profiles. Now, what we do know is when our lipid profiles change, when the body begins to have this hormonal shift, the body's like, okay, we're having less estrogen. Where can we get these hormones from? What the body then begins to do is deposit fat around our midsections. How lovely. So you'll notice without changing your diet, you may have seen an increase in like just the thickness around your midsection. Again, this is hormonal. In the same way that recently I've done a couple of episodes on weight loss and calories in, calories out, even weight loss injections. And why are they so incredibly successful? Why is it so many people have tried every single diet on the planet? Why are they having such tremendous success on these weight loss injectables? And the answer, once again, is hormones. Yeah, it's not as simple as calories in, calories out. And the same is true when it comes to your changing body as you're going through perimenopause and menopause. I'm here to tell you that if you really care about your cardiovascular health, your lipid profile, if you care about the visceral fat, which is the fat that collects around our organs, the fat that collects around our midsection, if you care about those things, like maybe you don't care about the dry skin and the thinning hair and some of the other things, but if you care about living longer and feeling better, you've got to take action and just consider hormone support. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to do anything, but I am telling you there's so many options, even ways naturally to balance your hormones, to smooth things out. And not only is it your right, in my opinion, if you have loved ones, it's your responsibility. You're approaching the second half of your life, and it should be better than the first half. It really has the potential to be. But it starts with your energy. When your hormones are out of whack, you don't have the energy. And if you don't have the energy, you don't have the will, you don't have the determination, you don't have the power, you don't have the oomph, you don't have the mojo to do just about anything. So if you're feeling low on energy, if you're feeling defeated, if you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I don't even recognize who I am, I just want to feel like myself again, I want you to know that it's possible to feel better than you maybe ever have before. It's possible, but it's going to take some work. And it's going to take you having to be an advocate for yourself because, as I mentioned, very few doctors actually have a clue about hormones. Early on when I shared some of the very concerning symptoms I was experiencing with my general practitioner, he laughed and said, well, that's aging for you. Never suggest that we test my hormones. Whether you're considering hormone replacement therapy or natural supplements, I also encourage you to consider intermittent fasting. And I've done a previous episode specifically geared towards perimenopausal and menopausal women and how it is you need to best approach intermittent fasting. But the research that I found just in preparation for today's episode related to intermittent fasting and the incredible benefits it has for perimenopausal and menopausal women is just astounding. I myself started doing intermittent fasting again at age, I believe, 50, and I have a new approach to it. I share it in this episode that I'll link below. You can also watch it on YouTube. I tend to take a very relaxed approach. I believe that's right for me. I think some people are really caught up in the like, oh, is it exactly 12:01? Now I can eat food. I think there's a more relaxed approach that works best. But I think all of us are very different. And that's why I phase my diet. It's why I believe that your own science project, like you are the person who knows what's best for you, your lifestyle, you know your history, you know if you have struggled with an eating disorder in the past and perhaps maybe intermittent fasting isn't the right choice for you. Hopefully you know what your stress levels are. But for everyone, it's about like really looking at yourself as a moving target. Like as we're aging, hormones are going to be changing. So we have to figure out in terms of our lifestyle and what we're doing at this stage of our lives and what makes us happy, what makes us feel whole, what makes us feel our best, and know that that's always going to change. When you're in a new phase or a new season, you should probably consider phasing your diet, phasing your exercise, phasing your behaviors, because all of these things are what make us healthy and whole and help us to be our very best. Depending on when you're watching this video, I am doing a 2-week energy reset. It's a free challenge. Here's what it's going to include. We're going to walk daily. We're going to do some intermittent fasting, and I'm going to teach you what foods are probably the least inflammatory for you. It's kind of an educational process, but mainly we're going to walk. We're going to get our energy back. We're going to get our mojo back. We're going to get in a good mood again. And I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to keep you motivated. I'm going to send you an audio every single day, really short. And you're just going to keep yourself accountable. You're going to put on your walking shoes and you're going to walk, whether that's in your home or on a treadmill or outside if the weather permits. But we're going to do this together. And I want you to experience what's possible in just 2 weeks. Like literally, your mind can be blown by what is possible, how much better you can feel in less than 14 days. The link, like everything else, will be below in our show description. I want to encourage you to do that with us. All that to say, girlfriend, do not give up. I want you to get real serious about this. I want you next year to leave, not even next year, 2 months from now, I want you to leave me a comment and say, Chalene, I feel better than I ever have before because I started making these changes. It's not just one thing. It's diet, it's exercise, it's sleep, but all of these things are that much easier to navigate when our hormones are in balance. And we have to educate ourselves. We've got to stick together, ladies, because it's sad to me that so much of what I've learned has been from finding experts through social media because it's not on the news, because the doctors that, most of us we go to the person who we're assigned to, right? And we don't even think to ask what their credentials are or if they have a certification in women's health. So I want to encourage you to keep going. And for those of you who've been listening to the Chalene Show and you've been on this journey and you've been slowly making some of these changes with me, you've been on this journey with me and things are starting to look up, you're losing weight or you're feeling better, your energy is back and you're starting to feel more in control. Tell us about it below in the comments because I want other women to read that and know that it's very possible. You don't have to overhaul your whole life. You can just make these little tiny changes and make a dramatic impact on your health, your longevity, the way you feel, the way you live, and the second half of your life. Listen, we're 2.0. This is 2.0. I don't call it menopause. I call it menopause. Big round of applause if you made it to the after party, okay? So if you've made it to the after party, if you've hit that 365 days without a cycle and you're in the after party club, drop a comment below. Put hashtag after party. All right, if you got a lot out of this episode and you realize that there's so much more you need to learn about your hormones, I've done some really great, if I do say so myself, great interviews with some phenomenal experts on the topic of hormones. In fact, I created an entire playlist for you, and I highly encourage you right now while you're thinking about this to binge that playlist. You can click on the link that's in our show notes, or you can watch it here on YouTube. Hey, I love you. I mean it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for double checking to make sure that you're subscribed, and I'll see you soon.